All right, kings, gentlemen, everyone else, welcome to yet another exciting episode of Scruffy Dude in the Back Alleys, telling you what to think and how to think it. And today I want to talk about, the Balkanization of America. And people usually say Balkanization and mean the fragmentation of a large state into several smaller states, but I'm not going to talk about that, although that is very much in the cards for America. I want to talk about the degradation of American political discourse, American culture, American finance, American economy, into one comparable to that of the Balkan countries, both in the 90s and before. Now, I've said before that I believe the Musk administration is going to turn America into Yeltsin's Russia, where essentially oligarchs control everything, culture is non-existent, there's no consumer, worker, environmental protections of any kind, so just rich people can do whatever the fuck they want, and the poor can only really just suffer and do nothing about it. But fact of the matter is that these trends towards balkanization have been present way before Donald Trump became president. So what's very interesting to me is that, when I was a younger man, I looked up to the West because here in the Balkans, political culture, political discourse is at a very low level. Nobody discusses policy, nobody discusses ideology, nobody discusses the future because I don't think anybody believes in the future. What we do is we hurl insults at each other. And they're not very creative insults either. They're always some variant of you are a thief, you're a traitor, you're unmasculine, you are this, you are that. Now, it's not even clever, right? It's not even clever trading of insults. And what I see happening is that in Western discourse, and this is, of course, one of the many reasons why I'm so interested in Western discourse, because I just prefer being in a milieu which is more focused on policy, ideology, and the future. Right, more cerebral ways of doing politics. Like what should we do? What should we, as an organized policy, do with our resources? Where should we orient ourselves? What should be the cause of our country? Right. But I've been ever since 2016. I've seen that essentially American discourse has degraded into name calling and mutual alienation, just people no longer willing to work with each other to hammer out a sort of consensus, to propose policy, oppose policy. There's no ideological positioning anymore. It's just, you're a thief, you're a traitor, you're a racist, you're a communist, you're a this, you're a that. It's just name calling. And there's no attempts to persuade each other. So, for example, I've not seen any left-wingers trying to, peel people away from Trump's coalition. There's no outreach to disaffected Trump voters who may be disgusted with his immoral and criminal behavior, specifically the crypto rug pull. There's been a lot of pointing and laughing, but there's been no attempts to peel people away from the MAGA plantation. And I believe this is actually quite reflective of a general degradation of American society. Here in the Balkans, we had this sort of degradation, specifically in Yugoslavia in the 80s, as the country grew poorer, and as basically people stopped believing in the common myth of Yugoslavia. Right? You had. In Serbia, as a constituent republic of Yugoslavia, you had the rise of a populist demagogue, Slobodan Milosevic, who basically convinced Serbs that even though they were the essentially dominant people of Yugoslavia, that Yugoslavia was essentially the Serbian Empire, he convinced them that actually no, all these other republics are taking you for a ride, they're draining you of your resources, which rightfully belong to you. And they have been trying to genocide us like the entire world is against Serbs, which is, if you look at Serbian history, it's just a bunch of bullshit. But, let's not get into that, really. And another thing that happened was, this coincided with the political enfranchisement of a segment of the population we could really only call the hoi polloi. They're not even really working class as much as they are uh, the kind of people you should never really ask for their political opinions. There's that Winston Churchill quote that the best argument for democracy, I mean, against democracy, is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter. Well, these guys are below the average voter. These are the people whose opinions, not only on politics, but opinions on anything, should simply not be admitted because, well, let's face it, each society has its ruled who will never be rulers. Well, the rise of power of Slobodan Milosevic included empowering these people, and it was specifically done with the collaboration of the Yugoslav secret services and the criminal element within Yugoslavia more generally, but especially Serbia. Although at that point there was really no difference between the secret services and the criminal element. So there was no private crime, you could say. Every criminal in the country was working for the government, more or less. Talking, of course, here about career criminals or organized criminals. I don't think that, I don't know, Dragan murdering his wife in Smederevo was working for the government or something. It's just because, you know, crimes of passion, they're going to happen in every society. They're inevitable. So it was just the rise of this stratum of the not even oppressed, but really just the people who are always going to be less than working class, less than full citizens, the criminal element and the security services, and that was Milosevic's coalition, and he used that to usurp power from the Communist Party at the federal level, which contributed to the breakup of the country. I'm not going to place sole blame for the breakup of Yugoslavia at the feet of Milosevic. And it also led to the rise as a unifying force for this coalition of turbofolk. Turbofolk is a genre of music, and it's also a general aesthetic, not just a genre of music. And it's characterized by pro-turbo folk people will say this is just folk music for the modern era, but it's actually more like a syncretism of low-grade European Schlager with Eastern Arabic and Gypsy rhythms. So the most typical rhythm of a turbo folk song would be like the thing with the Gypsy tambourines and everything. It's also sort of vaguely Turkish, vaguely Arabic, vaguely just Middle Eastern. And it's presented as authentic and traditional, but in fact promotes values which we could only really describe as degenerate. Like, if you're a man, be a criminal and an alcoholic, and you should beat your wife and just steal and smuggle. And if you're a woman, you should be a whore, and you should marry someone obscenely rich but don't really love him, just exploit him for money. And it does have a sort of animalistic naturality to it, in it that it is more natural than just being a normal human being, because you're really giving in to your lower human impulses. And so it is a very dangerous sort of and of course heavily politicized aesthetic and genre of music. And we know the aesthetics of it, really. Low-grade synthesizers, plastic gypsy women with fake tits, loud vehicles, loudness in general, no taste, nouveau riche, everything. So it's important that the things you own are expensive and not that they're good. But it was a sort of, you could call it a unifying aesthetic of the Milosevic movement. And I'm seeing not only the political and the low culture aspects of that rising in America, I'm also seeing the aesthetics of it. You can actually see it, that MAGA has begun valuing being essentially a crypto scammer. If you're a man, that, you know, virtue comes from scamming the technically unsophisticated through the internet, and that if you're a woman, that you should essentially look to become either a wife or a side chick of a crypto scammer. There is, of course, some performative trad LARP, but fundamentally it's so untraditional. It really is just rich women pretending to be 50s housewives, like Marie Antoinette pretending to be a shepherdess, which, look, you want to pretend to be I LARP as many things, but I do it on my own time. I don't pretend it's my political ideology. So this is really the disappointing thing to me because, I come from the Balkans. I think that what we did to our culture, of course, it wasn't just the 80s and 90s, just a long-term historical process. I think it's horrible, and I hope that we could look up to the West and sort of lift ourselves up. But that didn't happen. We dragged the West down to our level. And for now, America is, the only casualty of this. You can see the beginnings of this in the United Kingdom and France and Germany. We can maybe talk about these phenomena some other time, but this is not a good thing. And as someone from the Balkans, let me tell you, you are not going to have a good time. And I guess, yeah, that's all I have to say.